Welcome to the Nicole Osei Report. I'm Nicole Osei, and today I'm excited to be talking with again Daniela Amato, animal intuitive, Reiki Master, and author of Finding Joy: A Dog's Tale. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, and again, I cannot say enough praises about your book. It was absolutely fascinating. I
Great.
was amazed at parts. I laughed. I cried. There were so many beautiful moments in there. But before we get into the book, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Sure. This is a part I always hate. Um, I was born in Italy. I grew up in New York in the Bronx. I currently live in New Jersey, and I love animals. I'm a massage therapist, a lymphatic drainage massage therapist as well, and I'm kind of a Reiki Master teacher, so I love teaching Reiki to others. And I'm an animal intuitive communicator, so that's really where I'm headed now, I think, as I age and massage gets a little tiring or taxing on the body. Still love it, but I'm really, really enjoying communicating with the animals.
And before one other question before we get to the book is, and for people who may not know, can you talk about what an animal intuitive is?
Sure.
What you do?
For me, being an animal communicator is, I feel like I am the translator for animals. So I connect with their energy. They let me know their thoughts and feelings, and then I relay that to their humans.
All right. So the book, Finding Joy: A Dog's Tale.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's very interesting and it's told through your dog, Little Bear's eyes, who's now
Mhm.
crossed over.
Yeah.
When did you decide to write the book, and what was the process of telling his story and your family story through his perspective?
Mhm. That's a really good question. So for me, with this book, I was grieving, horribly grieving. It was one of the worst losses that I experienced. And I used to, before going to bed, I used to tell him, come visit me, talk to me in my dreams, because I missed him so much. And one morning I woke up and I had like all of this in my head. And I just sat down
Mm.
at the computer and basically regurgitated. I was like, I always think of Kermit the Frog when he's like typing
Yeah.
feverishly. That's kind of what I felt
Wow.
like, just typing, typing, typing. And I didn't stop for like probably the whole day. I just typed everything that was in my head. Didn't care about punctuation, grammar, order of things. I just let it all out. And then when that was done, then it took months to go back and put things in different order or correct, punctuation and grammar and all of that stuff. So that pretty much was it.
And were these messages that you were getting from him like, I want this, these are things that have to be in here, this part of the
Yeah,
story?
yeah, because some of it I didn't know. As even as his human, I was not aware of his um prior, when he was with Bear and when his feelings during that part of his life. Some things I forgot because to me, they were not important, or I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, like, so as I'm going through stuff, like, obviously I remembered certain things, but from his perspective, I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like, I
Mhm.
didn't know that. So, yeah.
At the beginning of the book, we go
Mhm.
through Little Bear's birth, that
Mhm.
process,
Yeah.
and you also write about Little Bear starting to kind of get used to the world around him. And
Mhm.
one thing that struck me when he was talking about seeing his first set of humans, the two-legged animals,
Yeah.
and you're right, there were two-legged beings. It seemed like they were
Right.
covered in a dark cloak. And initially, when I
Mhm.
was reading that, I was wondering, okay, is that how they see animals see humans? But then, of course, further into the book, the other people who had better energy and loving energy, they saw encased in light. So I
Right.
wanted to ask you, do dogs get a sense of humans initially through auras? Is that how they get a sense for us
Um,
before even our actions?
so I think it's the same as with people. Like some people could read auras or see colors around people, and some don't. And I think he just was one that could, and that's how he connected, or how he perceived people's energies. And I think it helped him kind of navigate, like, oh, this one's kind of dark, let me stay away, or this one's good, let me move forward. So I think it's just, I don't know that it's every animal, but it was his gift.
And that makes sense too, because his mother, she kind of, when he's talking about when she would tense up and kind of sense
Hmm.
fear, it seemed like she was sensing that from in a different way than maybe he was in terms of reading an aura.
Right, right. Yeah, that's the impression I got from him as well.
And another thing, you write about time for dogs. You write every moment is new and separate. We constantly adjust to each moment. Can you
Mhm.
elaborate how dogs experience time? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So from my experience, talking with animals, and then also with Little Bear, they it's not that they forget things. Like a lot of people think, like, oh, that passed, they don't remember it. They do, but
Mm.
they're more present. They're more about living in the moment, being, doing what's now. So that's why a lot of times if a dog does something naughty, for example, and hours later the human discovers it, it's you want to, of course, let them know it's naughty, but it's so far removed from where they are, because they're right now, that if
Mm.
you like reprimand them, it's almost like, that was like, could have been days ago in their minds, even it was hours ago. They're not holding on to it so much. I don't know. Did that
And that makes
explain
sense for
it?
anyone who's oh, no, no, and that makes
Yeah.
sense for anyone who's had a pet in terms of the their reaction to being reprimanded. Maybe why they're looking like that is because, as you said, in their mind, that could have been days ago, even though for
Right.
us,
Yeah, like
it
they're
was,
over it
yeah.
already. Like, why are we talking
Yeah,
about
why are we
this
talking
again?
about that?
Yeah.
And speaking of time, there's a portion of
Mhm.
the book where uh, Little Bear's describing a past life with this then
Mhm.
human. And we kind of touched on that before in the last conversation, but I wanted to talk about that here. Can you
Mhm.
talk about with animals, like how their sense of memory with a past life, and is it
Mhm.
strong for them?
So yeah, I think they have a better connection to their past life than maybe we do, but not all animals will remember all of their past lives. I was really lucky with Little Bear. He did have a strong connection to that particular life that he discusses in the book. And that's something that popped into my head as well. So I kind of looked to him for guidance, like, was this the life you're talking about?
Mhm.
Because I'm kind of remembering this. And he was like, yes, don't you remember? Like, how do you not know? Because he was a little cocky sometimes.
And hilarious too. Like there was parts where I was literally laughing out loud.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. And he, as I was writing it, I would as well. I'm sorry, my current dog is squeaking her toy at me. There were times where I laughed out loud as well, because I
Mhm.
was like, oh man, I don't remember that. But yeah, he was a character for sure.
Oh, definitely. And then we get into animal speak. And
Yes.
you're right. My favorite part of animal speak, maybe the most important for communicating at a distance, is using pictures
Yeah.
in your mind and sending them far away. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate on that for people who maybe have never heard of what animal speak is
Mhm.
uh,
Sure.
initially?
Um, I think animal speak is different for everyone who uses it. Some may use the pictures that Little Bear favored using. Some might actually hear words. Some go with vibrations. It's using all of the senses, and some are better at other senses than others. For Little Bear, and because of him, myself, we like picture images, and I also always thought in pictures. So that
Mm.
comes easy for me. So I didn't realize until recently that not everyone sees images when they're talking. So that I thought everyone did because that's
Yeah.
how I thought,
Mhm.
but so yeah, did I answer that or did I
Oh, no,
get
yeah,
off
you did,
track
you did.
again? Yeah, so for animal speak, he would send images, and that's how he was taught also by the other dog Bear.
And so, eh, speaking of animal speak,
Mm,
can you talk about how when you first discovered that he because you write that little bear saying that he's like, I'm paying attention to mommy, I'm paying attention to see how basically how you move and how you are so that he can kind of like get you ready to
right.
communicate with him. So I
Yes.
was wondering, when you first discovered that this was happening, did you feel anything from him about like almost trying to like, I don't even know how to ask this question. Maybe send a message or get you. Did you feel him getting you ready to
I
have that first communication?
I did. So a lot of times, and I'll put it in like a regular situation, right? People will ask me like, why are they staring at me? Why are they looking at me? So that's what they're doing. They're learning your physical cues and your facial expressions and, your silent sounds that you might make. So that they can then learn how to communicate with you, how to get you to understand them by using things similar to what you already do.
Hmm.
So I did feel him kind of prepping me, sort of, to use animal speak, and with him and with the other animals in the neighborhood,
Mm.
just by like his body language and how he would act. Yeah.
And so you were saying that the animal speak could be different depending on the animal. Some is pictures, some vibrations, some maybe
Mhm.
words. As
Mhm.
you're connecting with little bear in that way and you're using the pictures, when you're finding yourself, you're realizing I can speak to other animals. Are they also using pictures, or do you have to kind of like lean into, okay, well, this one is going to kind of get in touch with me via vibration or
Mhm.
and or words? How does that work?
Mhm. So that's a really good question. um, I think animals are so much better at it than humans, because they never stopped using it. I think everyone's born with it. As we develop, as humans develop, we kind of put that to the side and develop in the more human way, right? Words and reading and things like that, right? So because animals are better at it than humans, I think they adjust to what I'm sending out there.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
that
that makes
so I'm
perfect
still
sense.
using picture images. Unless they tell me, yeah, I don't know what you're saying, then I'm still doing what comes natural to me.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, in your preparations chapter, I find it very interesting how Little Bear and animals in a way perceive how humans the way that we go about our daily lives. And you
Hmm.
write, I do not think humans understand what life is about. Rather, they think it's like a series of chores and acquisitions. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true for so many people. So,
Right.
can you elaborate on
Hmm.
that powerful line of copy?
Yeah, so because of his past lives, because of who he was, who his soul is, I should say, he's learned to kind of let go of the hustle and the bustle. Um, and he saw that we do not do that. We humans do not do that. We are very motivated by, we got to do this, we got to go there, we got to keep going, going, going. And so he was pointing out that, we just don't get it. We don't get life. We think life is meant to be busy instead of just to enjoy and to live each moment, just enjoying. Yeah,
And as I said, that it just stuck out because that's very true of the way a
super
lot
true.
of human beings, how we move. We almost have to remember to take that time. And that's why, whether it's a walk in the park or meditating, that stuff is very important to get centered.
So important to get centered, and we miss so much out of um, just the joy of life by being so time driven and
Mhm.
task driven. Yeah.
Another part of the book that I wanted to talk about,
Mhm.
Little Bear is just describing using your mother's, who's passed away, has passed on.
Mhm.
Sorry to hear
Yep.
that. Visitation
Mhm.
as a blue jay or a cardinal,
Mhm.
and then he's saying that at that moment he kind of realized that communications with humans was possible. No, he could communicate with you because he saw that you recognized
Yeah.
the your
The
mother's
message.
visitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Mhm.
was wondering if you
Mhm.
could kind of elaborate on that more.
Elaborate on his point of view or how it was for
Yeah,
me.
if you could kind of talk about when you first, your experience first, when you realized that that was your mother
Mhm.
visiting, and then from maybe from his perspective as well, when he's watching that and picking up on these cues that you recognized what that was. So he knew
Right.
communication was possible.
So for me, when I first um, realized that that was a message from my mom, of course I cried. Right? It was very emotional. I cried, but it was, you know, how you could be sad and happy at the same time. That's
Mhm.
what I was feeling. Um, and I think that did open me up to realizing that energy, you know, doesn't die, that it just continues in a different form. Um, Little Bear watching me made him very happy because then he was, you know, all right, we're doing this. We're not turning back. Like she does get it. You know, it was a realization for him as well that all of his, you know, training and all of his trying to get me to hear him was possible and was something that we can move forward with.
And I was asked specifically with the Blue Jay or Cardinals. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people who have told me about their experiences with seeing it's like a cardinal that always, this is after someone they, a loved one has passed on, and they'll
Yeah.
start seeing either a blue jay or a
Mhm.
cardinal. Is there something specific about those two birds, or is it different for everyone? I've heard that a lot.
I mean, I think those are the two main visiting birds. I think that's their purpose is to deliver
Mhm.
messages. Certainly, it could be other birds or butterflies or, you know, bees, and it could be anything that's meaningful to that individual.
Mm.
My mom loved blue jays and cardinals, so it wasn't weird for me that that's what she would send. Of course, now I do live in New Jersey, so they come often. So, you know, people can be like, well, yeah, well, they're here all the time, which they are, but it's the manner in which they present themselves that makes it different, that makes it more apparent that it's a message.
And can you describe the that manner just for people who have
Mhm.
not had that experience? I know what you're talking about, but some of our
Mhm.
listeners may be thinking, okay, what manner? Like, what do I need to look out for?
Right. So, you know, I have a, luckily, I'm very fortunate. I have a nice deck and, you know, we have lots of birds in the area. So they're always flying by and, you know, they might land on the railing. I can't think of what it's called, the railing. But in those moments, it was like they would land and then turn and look. And it was like they
Mm.
were looking directly at me. Or, and if I ignored it, then it would come back and come closer and look again. It was almost very purposeful till I was like, okay, I see you. Thanks for stopping by. And then they would go. It wasn't until I acknowledged that it was a message and that they were there for a reason that they stopped. Like they just kept going till I acknowledged it.
Mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, there was a lot of funny parts in the book too.
Yeah.
Like when the family meets your son's dog Philip, there, he talked
Well,
about a bit of jealousy there. And
yeah.
then he'd even talked about why he started taking sisters' socks and then ripping them, and
Mm.
that there was a reason for that. Can you
Oh gosh.
elaborate on that? Because I thought that was very interesting from his perspective about why that's being done, and it's so anyone that has a pet may not realize why their animal
Yeah.
companion is behaving in that way.
Do you know what? I honestly, I cannot remember in this moment why he
Uh-huh.
did that. Like if I read it, it would jog my
Oh,
memory,
okay.
but it's so like, to me, that's how I know it was his message and how he wanted it, because it's not my own thoughts that I remember. It's really his thoughts. But I feel bad I can't really answer that
Oh, no,
question
that's
for
fine. I mean,
you.
this is it's a
Um,
you wrote a whole book, so I understand that. But so on that note, then, like,
yeah.
um, when you were getting this message and you were finding out things that you kind of didn't know yourself, or it was,
Mhm.
and then his take on it, how was that as for you?
It would make me laugh because I'd be like, this guy, like he
Yeah.
was, like, is that what you were doing? Like, what on earth, Or, I would just find him so funny. And yeah, he just made me laugh, like when I realized why he was doing certain things, or um, just his take on stuff. Yeah. He did. I know he did a lot of stuff to get his sisters, my daughter's attention.
Yeah.
Um, So he would like steal things of hers. He wanted to be closer to her because she would go out. She was of the age of going out
Hmm.
with her friends. So he would get like a little, oh, you want to go out? I'm going to take your things
Yeah.
now. And like be like that.
Yeah.
And then he would feel bad about it afterwards. And you could see
Hmm.
it like all in his face, um, how upset he was that he did something naughty,
Yeah.
but yeah. Yeah.
Because there was even a portion of the book where he talked about you write about he's telling why, like, sometimes he doesn't move, and everyone who's had a dog has experienced that, when you kind of need them to scooch over. And I don't remember the exact words, but I thought that was a very funny description of, like, I could have moved over, but I
Right.
didn't want to because I
Right.
was
Just
feeling
sitting.
like this.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times they like to smell, like they lay where they smell you the most. And that's
Mm,
like their comfort, that's a security blanket for them. But with this little guy, sometimes it was just because it was your spot.
yeah.
He just, oh, no, I want your spot. It must be
Mhm,
so special that you always have it, then now I
mhm,
want it. And then I'd
yeah.
be like, do we have to go through this every night in the
Right.
bed? Like he'd always be in my spot. He was a trip.
He was. And
It
then,
really was
so
a
just
trip.
to now we're getting on to the portion of the story, and again, for all listeners, please download or buy this book. You will thoroughly enjoy it.
Mm.
um
Thank
Little
you.
Bear starts, unfortunately, he starts getting sick.
Yes.
And of course, throughout the book, he's communicating with Bear, and there was a
Mhm.
purpose, there was a point where he talks about fulfilling his purpose. And
Yes.
you write, um and I think this is Bear talking to Little Bear. Life's purpose does not have to be a huge spectacle or event. It's the little things that help others feel whole and loved that are most important. You reminded a human of who she
Hmm.
was at her core.
Right.
And I thought that was very powerful.
Hmm.
As you're writing that and just kind of like experiencing what Little Bear went through in those conversations. Yeah.
Tears just coming down my face when I was typing that out. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
I mean, sometimes I could still get choked up about it because it is powerful. It's one soul acknowledging another soul's importance, even if we don't see it ourselves. Every soul is important. It doesn't matter what position we hold, what status we have, how much money we have. The soul doesn't care about any of that. And we go through life, especially women, where, we're not valued as much as we should be, or, we go through a relationship where we're not valued. And for him to acknowledge my value was like
mm,
crazy to me. It was like, so, um, it was really powerful and healing. And I think that's what he was saying there. Like that was this little guy's purpose. Like as little as he was like 17 pounds,
mhm.
he did a lot of healing in his time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was just, yeah. I,
It's a
and
lot
at the,
big.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I said it's big.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
big.
It
Yeah.
was, and that's why I had to mention that part because it was again, so it was compelling, it was profound, and I think a lot of
Mhm.
people who read that, it may make them think about like their connection to their pets as
Mhm.
well, and maybe
Yeah.
some things that they've learned that they didn't even realize that they were learning about
Right.
themselves through their connection to their
Right.
pet.
Yeah, yeah, but they're animals. Like, a big one is also um, learning to pause. We live in such a
Mm,
busy society. People don't take time to, like you said earlier, to just, sit and enjoy. It's always like grabbing something quick, eating it quick, and doing everything quick. And they teach us, like, because just by presenting themselves in front of us, and sitting there like, okay, it's time to play, or okay, like,
mhm,
pet me, like in those few minutes that you're petting them, you're taking time to pause. And
mhm.
that's what they're doing. It's yes, they want to play, they want to be pet, but really it's more about you're doing too much. Relax, come sit
Yes.
by me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that can be healing.
absolutely.
That not even
100%.
can be, it is healing.
It is healing, yeah.
It's healing. And so towards the end when, he's getting ready to cross the rainbow bridge, going into heaven at or joy,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that it was done in a kind of like a series of steps, it seemed. Like he was kind of
Right.
taking a making some steps to cross it and then kind of stopping. Can you talk more about that in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
uh, how that process kind of worked for at least for little bears?
For him, yeah. I mean, some animals, I will say, transition very quickly. They're ready, they're, happy to go, their body's tired or whatever, and they transition quickly. I think his hesitation, he didn't want to leave us. Like, he was young. I think 10 is young. He died prematurely for how long he should have lived, because of his illness. And so mentally, he wasn't prepared. He wasn't ready to go. He wasn't really afraid. He knew already what would be there. It's just he wanted to stay, So that was his hesitation, his back and forth. He
Mm.
wanted to make sure we were okay. Were we ready? You know, so
And I noticed too that, when he does cross, and I think even like right before he crossed, he was seeing other animals, and I believe,
mhm.
there were humans there as well.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
can you talk about that? What they, once they do cross over
Yeah.
that connection?
So in my work now, I do a lot of end of life and a lot of afterlife communications. And it's all like for Little Bear, what he saw was what me and him talked about heaven or joy would be, which is, lots of greenery and flowers and running and, being greeted by my other dogs that passed years prior to him. For someone else, it could be a different scene, um, because it's whatever you think is the most beautiful, that's what it's going to be.
Mm,
Um, it's always a release, a letting go of the weight of the physical body and what that entails.
mm,
So all the earthly stuff.
mhm,
That's what that release is, just makes you like so much lighter. And your soul just, I keep saying rising. It's not like technically, like we think of it, right? But it's your
mhm.
soul is elevating and releasing and just feeling lighter and more joyful as you cross over.
And when he did cross over, um, there's a there's a portion of the book where you're writing about the significance of the bonfire and him building the bonfire. And I don't want to give too much away, so I'm going to let you. Can you talk about that as much as you would like in terms of why that was so significant?
Right. So there's a few things. Bonfire, like all light, draws attention. So basically, he's in the afterlife. So he's not, his body is not there. it's not a physical bonfire, it's an energetic bonfire, which he showed me as a real bonfire because that's how I would understand it. But light, fire, it draws attention. He was calling from all areas of the afterlife to come and help and pay attention, and really just calling people to come together, or calling souls, I should say, to come together to help. That was what he was doing. What he felt he was helping with, it was for him, it was regarding my son who was in service, for other souls that were coming to help. It could be whatever we needed on earth at that time. There's always a lot of wars and strife and unsettled. So his call was really for anyone to just help humanity here on earth. Yeah.
And so when writing this book, and you get to the end of it, and you've told Little Bear's story, and how are you processing that? I mean, I can imagine that that's a lot to go through, because you are grieving, you
Yeah.
are getting messages, you're telling the story, you're telling your family's story, and now it's out and it's complete. How are you feeling at that point?
Like a basket case. I had so much emotion going on. I was thrilled because it came together, so nicely. I was scared because it is my family's, story. Um, and it and mine, like I felt very vulnerable. I felt exposed. Whenever you put yourself out there to the public, it could be nerve wracking. It could be a little fear inducing. But I was also thrilled and happy, and I was, crying because, like, I can't believe he gave me such a great gift in his story. So there was a lot of different emotions going on that really I had to sort through, just to, live again on earth instead of in my mind, right?
What do you want readers to take away from your story after? What's
Take
most
a,
important to you?
yeah. Little Bear has a lot of little life lessons in there, which I think are important. I guess the biggest thing is, animals do have the same richness of emotion and thought processes that humans do. A lot of people still think that humans are superior because we're navigating the life we've created easier than animals do. But that's not really true. If we were to live in the jungle where an animal is comfortable, we would have difficulty navigating, right? So
Mhm.
everyone has all species are powerful and the best in their own environment. But that doesn't mean that we are the best of everything. So I would love for people to just acknowledge and understand that every species has their own thought process, their own things that are important, their own emotions. They're not just blobs of fur, they are actual souls. And there is no number one soul, lower soul. Souls are souls. It's all even up there.
And I hope that more people wake up to that, and I definitely think they will after reading your
I
book.
hope so.
Again, it was
I do
phenomenal.
hope so.
Finding Joy: A
Thank
Dog's
you.
Tale by Daniela Amato. I encourage all of you to
Mhm.
download it, buy it. You will really enjoy it. And there's a lot to take away from it. Again, thank you so much for
Oh.
taking time to speak with me again.
Oh, of course. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And for all of you who are listening and or watching, if you like this kind of content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and keep an open mind.
Great.